Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm here with Hesha Abrams, and we're going to be talking about resolving conflict. I've got one of these here, which is your book,
Mm, indeed.
Holding the Calm, which is recommended. I said it's a great read, and we're going to talk about that as well as we're going to be talking about the secret to resolving conflict. Unless you're going to argue with me. Before we
I'm not
dive
in the
in,
arguing business. I'm
yeah,
in the
before
resolving
we
business.
before we get into the conversation, where can people find you?
So the website is Holding the Calm, and that's CALM, holdingthecalm.com. And I got all kinds of free stuff on there, podcasts, webinars. I do these 1-minute tips on how to resolve, the holiday dinner with that, ugly, nasty uncle or nasty sister-in-law. And what do you do and how do you do it? All the way up to, I work for Fortune 100 international giant conglomerates on solving billion-dollar disputes. And it's just the same as that nasty, holiday dinner table or two roommates fighting over whose cat peed on the rug. It's all human
You
being
you
stuff. So it
you
really works the
you
same.
you talk a lot in the book. You use examples. Some examples make you cry. Some examples make you laugh because
Mm-hmm.
life like that. But let's start from the beginning. So you've had an interesting journey, haven't you? Because tell us about how you got into mediation.
Well, I grew up in a real tough family, lots of fighting, lots of conflict. And it was just very natural to me. And I didn't like it. It wasn't fun, but it was familiar and it was comfortable. And I was always told that, I was an arguer, so I needed to be a lawyer. And so, I became a lawyer. And, I was a trial lawyer. And I was back in the days when women, you were told little lady, or maybe you could do family law stuff. And I did complex commercial business litigation, which is what I wanted to do. And I've got so many fun, good stories that I can share about that, which actually one comes to mind right now that is not in the book. So for people who've read the book, would you like a quick little bonus fun
Yeah,
story?
why not? Yeah, a bonus. Yeah.
So, and this is, oh God, I'm 64 now. I think I was 31, 32, something like that. So I've been mediating 7 or 8 years. So I was decent, but I didn't have a level of mastery yet, of course. And so I was mediating in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the United States, which is very kind of country and has its own culture to it. And it was a big oil and gas case. I had 18 men, some of them with big, huge belt buckles and big hats
Big
and
hats.
like
Yeah.
like characters out of a movie. And I'm the only woman. And and I'm trying to manage all this testosterone and try to get us to where we can get to a deal. Well, we take a break for coffee, and there's this banker. And if I use the word corpulent, does that draw a visual image for people? I mean, corpulent, it's usually a literary word, but it's like you're heavy, your face is pockmarked, you're big, you're kind of snarly, nasty, fat cigar, big diamond pinky ring. I mean, that kind of a thing. And so I'm standing over by the coffee bar, and this banker who was corpulent, and he's about, I don't know, 5'10", and I'm 5'7", so he's taller than me and much bigger than me. He comes up to me, puts both hands on the wall opposite me, and pins me with his body. And he says, "Oh, you just so sweet. You just sugar. You just sweet as sugar. You just sweet as sugar." And I noticed 17 other men in the room freeze and watch. No one rescued me. No one came in and said, "Hey, dude, what are you doing? Stop that." They all just watched. And I knew in that instant how I handled that was whether or not I was going to get this case done or not, how I could, do it. And it wasn't something I had pre-prepared. But if you had $1 for every time you said the right thing at the right time, you know, it would be like, yay. So I just looked at him and I knew I had to be tough, but not too tough because I'd alienate everyone. I whacked him hard in the shoulder, but in a playful way. And I said, "Oh, aren't you just sweet? I'm just an old broad with stretch marks." His face fell. All the other men laughed and mocked at him, and he slithered back to his seat, and he wasn't a problem after that. So, chapter 1 in the book is
Yep.
speak into the ears that are hearing you.
Yes.
And we don't do that. We do our whatever we do. This is just me, and this is just how we do it, as opposed to, whoa, 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 wait a minute. You talking to an introvert or an extrovert? You're talking to a kinesthetic learner, a visual learner, an auditory learner. What are you doing? And by learning how to do that, you make your effectiveness really high. And I've learned that in the 30 years, I've been 35 years. I've been doing this. I read every neuroscience book I can get my hands on. I watch every lecture I can. I had a lot of my own pain and misery, so I had a lot of therapy, which is why some of the stories in the book, are about other people. I mean, it's because real life is bumpy. Real life has trauma and
Real life
tragedy.
is. There's one story that you tell in the book where if a tear doesn't come to your eye.
You're talking about the postal boy? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sad, and the thing is, I just had to know how to handle it because you can't treat everybody the same. Some people, let me just give everyone a quick example. I was mediating a case a couple days ago of some high-level employees, and they had gotten into a tiff. And so the CEO knew me and asked me if I'd come in and just get that resolved and get everybody back on track as a small little consulting gig. And I went, yeah, sure. So this one woman, major senior leader, is trying to make it all right. And so she keeps saying to the other person, but you're brilliant. What you're doing is just brilliant. I mean, I'm just so impressed with you, just so brilliant. And I look at the other woman and she's shriveling. And so I stopped her and I said, I know you think you're validating, but look at her face. She's scared. It's making it worse for her. She doesn't want to hear she's brilliant because I didn't say this, but quite frankly, she knows she's not brilliant. What she wants to hear is she's competent, that she's doing a good job, that she's a hard worker. And the woman looked at me and went, yes, yes, yes. And we don't realize because we do what we want. We do what we wish you would do to us. But that's like 20% of the population, you know? So it just doesn't work to do to everybody else what you want. You got to stop. And I have this great analogy that I give to people. If there's a bomb in the town square, that guy waddles out in his Michelin suit, right? He didn't just start cutting wires for God's sakes. He looks, diagnoses. What is the pressure switch? What's the detonation? What do I do? When you're in interpersonal communications, I don't care if it's just interpersonal, if it's a negotiation, if it's a conflict, I don't care what it is. You look at the other person and you see who they are and you speak into those ears. Your effectiveness will quadruple like that.
I like what comment that Will said, which is that there's a Thomas Erickson quote, which is communication is done on the listener's terms.
That's excellent. That's absolutely excellent and rare. I have a whole chapter in the book on when I volunteered for suicide crisis telephone work. That's what taught me how to listen. Because I admit I was cocky, I was arrogant, I was a lawyer, I knew everything. Come on, I was gonna get in there and do my thing. And this little old lady schooled me good that I had taken their training on listening and hadn't listened.
Yep. And you talk in the first chapter very much about the importance of listening and the importance of getting the right words, which is what you've been explaining just now. That's so important. And I mean, it's very nice for you to go in and talk in the book about the fact how you went for that to talk people out of suicide and.
And what's interesting is, you don't really talk about
luckily no one got hurt.
Yeah, seriously. But you know what it really is you don't talk about a suicide, they're just so bereft. They're so empty and hopeless. All you really do is listen to somebody. And think about our society with all the social media stuff and the pandemic. We don't really listen to each other anymore. We fight and argue, and if you think differently than me, you're just an idiot. You're stupid.
Yes.
How could you be so
Yeah,
ridiculous?
cancel. Block.
It's just that's our society, and I can't fix our society. You can't fix it. But what I can do in my little tiny sphere of influence, I can try to make things better in my little sphere of influence. And I got 35 years of tricks of how do I get somebody who says, I want $100 million, and the defendant says, here's 100,000, drop dead. How do I settle those things? It's not logic.
You tell a great story in the book about the two people. One that was wanted to sell for 35 million, and one that wanted to buy for 30 million, and they basically went head together. And the point that you make is that we all think that people are logical, and in fact we're not. We're emotional, and we have, there's no way I'm going to settle for less than 35 million. Well, there's no way I'm going to pay more than 30 million. So what do you do? And what did you? So what did you do?
Well, in
Because
that
it's one of
one,
the. I laughed out loud when I read this.
wasn't it a great story? And it was two very, very, very high testosterone men, very high.
I can
So,
imagine.
and you don't say to somebody, let's be reasonable, let's listen to each other, let's talk. No, there's no win-win to the Super Bowl or to the World Cup. It's
Well,
winners and losers.
yeah, and it's it's well known that the worst thing that you can say to somebody to wind them up is calm down.
Exactly right. Isn't that interesting? It's fascinating. And the reason behind that is because it makes you feel powerless. I'm not going to be powerless. I'm going to grab more power. Don't you dare tell me what to do. And that's what
Yeah.
happens. So the first thing I did was I used humor. I started laughing. And so I looked at them and I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do this Indiana Jones style. We're going to line up shot glasses of cheap tequila. And the last one standing gets that extra 5 mil. And they look at me shocked. And then I say, no, no, no. You know what we could do? We can arm wrestle for it. And then I just kept making up more and more crazy things. So they're laughing. They have to laugh. And then finally I said, you know what? This is all a crapshoot anyway. It's all a gamble anyway. And I took a coin out of my pocket and I said, we're going to flip for it. And I didn't give them a chance to argue with me. I just flipped it. One of them that was a public company reached out and grabbed the coin midair and said, we'll split the difference. I can't have it be said I did a $5 million coin flip. But now they're laughing and they're joking.
Yes.
And you know what happens? Gets so tense. They just get so tense. And so what can you do to create lightness is a technique, literally is a technique.
It is. I just thought it was so funny, because I'm thinking, what on earth what could you do? And then when you said in the book, well, we'll just put some tequila shots up and see. That's what I think. It's like, well, of course, what else could you do? And then the arm wrestle, and then flick a coin, and it's like, I can imagine that as you said about flicking the coin, it will always you will have a story to tell at a dinner party for the rest of your life, because you either won 5 million or lost 5 million.
And now that was with high argumentative testosterone alpha males. So what would I have done if it were two women, right? I would have looked at them and I said, we're going to get this resolved. I'm calling the Elizabeth Eden spa, or I'm going to call the Ritz-Carlton spa, and we're going to take a break and we're all going to go together. They would look at me like I was nuts, like I was absolutely crazy. I would come up with whatever things I could do to get them to laugh and lighten the mood. And then, okay, we can back off a little bit, because one of the things that's so interesting that I talk about too is there's a guy named Daniel Kahneman and I love William, those are good comments. Daniel Kahneman was a psychologist, but he won a Nobel Prize in economics by proving that Adam Smith's rational man did not exist. And that model had dominated economics for century, at least a century, I think. And what he was able to prove both psychologically and mathematically is that the vast majority of people don't want to win. They want to not lose.
Yeah.
And if you look at it that way, options become available. I've settled cases with donations to charity. I've settled cases with a Man of the Year dinner, honoring somebody for their contribution to blah, 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 whatever. It's a bond detector thing. You figure out what they need, and why would they do that for you?
You talk in the book about the next chapter after the words and listening, about the situation and awareness and reading the room.
Correct.
So one of the things, you must be able to do that. As soon as you open the door and walk in, you're looking for hats and belts. And
I am. It takes, it depends on how many people I have. If I'm talking to somebody, it takes between 15 minutes to I have a preliminary, and then 30. I know what somebody needs. Now, in social situations, I don't do that. I have a cocktail like everybody else and just sit and schmooze and talk about whatever the day's, whatever's happening. But when I'm working, I mean, this is a craft. This is a job. And so it's the same thing. And that's the reason I wrote this book, is so that we have, that's good. Thinking fast and slow is good too. But is to basically give people tools that are battle tested. These actually work in real life things. And they'll work with the CEO, they'll work with the director of HR, and they'll work with your idiot sister-in-law. It's amazing.
So going back to the book, we've gone through and looked at ways of mediation and resolving conflict. So the name of the book is Holding the Calm. So what is holding the calm?
I love that. I love that you asked me that. When I wrote the book, it had a different title, and we played around with different titles. And my editor asked me, he said, "What is your secret for what you do?" Because I get stuff done. And I said, "I hold the calm." And he said, "Ooh, what's that?" And I had never really articulated it. And I had to when I wrote the book. It was just something that I did. And what happens is we all have amygdalas. We have the fear and negativity center in our brain that pushes us in a fight, flight, or freeze responses. And what happens when that sucker's triggered in a nanosecond, you're not thinking. Your prefrontal cortex, which is up behind the forehead, isn't thinking. That's not what's happening. So you need a pause. Like I think William said, you need a pause.
He did, yeah.
But how do you need a pause? People say, take deep breaths. But you know what? That doesn't work. Everyone says to do it, but think about your own conflict situation. It actually doesn't work. It makes you more tense and stressed because I got to do something here and you're making me wait. So what I've been telling people, and what actually weirdly works, is you need a mantra. Mine happens to be holding the calm. Choose mine, choose others, and you trigger me somehow. I don't know what it is, what you did, what happened. Is it in me? Is it in you? I don't know. You triggered me. So I recognize I'm triggered. So I will say to myself, I'm holding the calm. I'm holding the calm. I'm holding the calm. And the reason why we did holding as opposed to hold is that the worst thing to the amygdala, and when it's triggered, is feeling powerless. So what do? I give myself some power. I am holding the calm. I got tools. I got approaches. I've got options here. And that gives me a 2 or 3 second space to where now I can say to the other person, how about if we do a do-over? I don't think that came out right. Or I can say, I don't think you intended for that to sound like it sounded. Or to someone really obnoxious, did you intend to offend me with that statement? I wouldn't think so. Right? Now, who's got the power in that interaction? Once you have power, you've got choices, you've got options, and you've got ideas. And then it's a long title. I wasn't happy doing the holding the calm, the secret to resolving conflict and diffusing tension. I really wanted to drop that last part off. But the reason I didn't was because all conflict, 100% of it, starts with tension. Every time. And I don't care if the tension is yelling at you or if it's and that silent treatment junk. And I use an analogy of spaghetti sauce. If you drop spaghetti sauce on the counter, you can wipe it up with a sponge right away. No big deal. You leave it overnight, you're scraping it off with a knife. You leave it 3, 4 months, 3, 4 years, 30 years, it's old and moldy and nasty. You can still get it done. It just takes more work and more effort, right? And so when you look at all of that, why don't we wipe the spaghetti sauce up when it's wet? Because we're scared, because our amygdalas are triggered, because we don't know how to. We're afraid or we perceive the wrong way. And that's why I wrote the book, because these are sentence stems and ways. And I tell people, choose 2 or I've got probably 50 sentence stems in there. Choose 3. Put them on a Post-it note near your phone or put them in your phone so that when a situation arises, you've got that sentence stem that you can just say. Now the ball goes across the squash court to the other guy who's got the power in that interchange. And once I feel power, my amygdala can calm down. Now I get clarity. Now I can get information. Now we can maybe wipe that spaghetti sauce up while it's wet.
It's one of the books that's I read books and you internalize it. There's other books you read and you externalize it. And so what I found with this book was that I'd read a chunk of it, and then I'd be talking to my partner and say, that book I'm reading at the moment about, not in a lecturing way, but in a way of talking, and because there's things in here that we can all learn from. And that's how I used it. I actually use it as a way of having that discussion, rather than just, oh yeah, that's an interesting piece of information. This is a tool that I can actually use to make myself a better person.
I love that you do that. It makes me feel very validated. In the back of the book, I put in a discussion guide where I was told initially I should write it as a separate book and charge for it. And I said, no, I'm giving it away for free. I insisted the book be in paperback and to be inexpensive. So it was designed for volume, so that an organization, a church, a synagogue, a mosque, an HOA, homeowner association, a community, a religious group, you can have a book club. You can have a train the trainer session. You can have a training where people buy the book, they sit around and they go through the discussion guide. You don't have to pay a big fancy trainer. Like people hire me to come in and do big fancy things. Okay, that's fine if you want that. But if you don't, or you don't have the money for it, I didn't want you losing out. So this way, in the back of the book, you can do it yourself. And then it does exactly what, Tim, you're doing yourself. Because when you start talking to people, well, I didn't understand that because I thought it meant da-da-da-da. And the other person says, oh, no, I found that really meaningful because of da-da-da-da. Really? Why do you think that? And before you know it, you're in the curiosity game. And the curiosity game is marvelous. That's why I'm a reader like you, Tim. I mean, lifelong learners, we're curious people. I want to learn. And what I always tell people, what's the number one thing that kills curiosity? Blame. And isn't that the first thing we do when something happens we don't like, is we go into blame? Yeah. And the book, I talk about the blame, defend, justify, death dance. So being able to stay open and curious is literally what enables, first of all, deals to happen and self-interest to get aligned. And very often, not very often, almost always, what people say they want and what they really want or need are two completely different things. And what they say they want and what they will accept are two different things. And you don't know that because you're just listening to what they're saying. But the more you talk and the more you listen and the more you're not an enemy, the more you can get out of them.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, because I'm not La La Land, that doesn't mean you doesn't have to whop somebody upside the head every once in a while, because sometimes that's a tactic too, and sometimes it's needed. If you're dealing with Vladimir Putin, you're not going to do the nice win-win problem-solving junk with him. That's not going to happen.
He's unlikely to flick a coin for Ukraine.
No, but you'd have to have something else for him.
Yes.
You'd have to have something else. And we all tried that. We tried to harm his, for his friends and take all the oligarchs' money and freeze everything. But it was a little too little and too late. It wasn't enough. And so there's other things that I certainly don't want to talk about because I know people. I'm not going to do anything that could possibly harm what possibly may be happening. But, but the spaghetti sauce is real old there. And it's a real problem.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's impacting everybody.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I had a theory of a way that we could either forestall the war. And I wrote about it 3 weeks before he invaded. And it's on my website, holdingthecalm.com. And if you scroll down on my media page, I think it's one of the very first articles I wrote for, it was either ComPro or Yahoo News or something like that. And it was way outside the box, creative, crazy thinking. And of course, it got no traction because it was so outside the box. But it would have gotten the world's attention a little bit, and who knows if it would have forestalled it. But
as you know,
the bravery of the Ukrainian people now, that's for sure.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of money in defense, so we
got to test out the new toys. What's the point of having the toys?
And have videos at all the conferences and that to sell them to other people. So, unfortunately,
yeah, it's part of the thing that at least I do. When I was younger, I was much more naive about how I wanted the world to be and how it should be. At my age now, I just accept the way the world is and try to work within it. And I tell people a lot of times, you deal with the hand you're dealt. How well you play that hand is what determines what happens to you. And it doesn't mean we don't try wonderful and marvelous things. A few dedicated people can actually change the world and do things. But you got to work somewhat within the system, because if you're just outside the system, you can make noise and you can create awareness, and people are just narcotized. They're miserable, they're on drugs, they alcohol, they're antidepressants, they're miserable in their jobs and their relationships, and they're narcotized by TV and social media. You don't see people rioting in the streets very often. And when you do, okay, that's a momentous moment. So how do you work with that? I try to be as pragmatic as possible.
Thank you so much for coming in today and talking about your book, Holding the Calm. I'm just going to the secret to resolving conflict and diffusing tension. I enjoyed it, and I've explained why I enjoy it. It's available on Amazon, isn't it?
Amazon and everywhere where books are sold. I've
Where
just
you
been
get the
told
book.
it's being, yeah, anywhere, any bookstore, I think, but I know Amazon sells it. I'm not sure in the UK, but I know it's available everywhere. And I've just been told it's being translated into Chinese. So
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
that's kind of, I had a friend wrote me and said, Hesha, please get the Chinese to calm down.
maybe you've reconciled the you're trying to reconcile the Russians. Now it's down to reconciling the Chinese.
You know, the Chinese have a
It,
longer worldview. Russians are very impatient. They want to do things quickly.
and I'm really sorry, but I just quoted Monty Python. Sorry about that. You probably wouldn't have noticed. It was a Monty
I
Python.
didn't, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
For those of us of our generation that will remember that. But the Chinese have a 100-year view. So it has to be handled very differently. They're not impatient. And when people are impatient, you can push a deal because they want it. When people are patient, it has to be much more structured, stick by stick by stick.
So thank you so much again for coming in today and talking about the book.
My pleasure.
And I'll see you on social.
I so look forward to it. This is marvelous, Tim. Nice to meet you, and thank you
so
everyone
much
for listening.
And thank you for all the thanks, Will, Andrew, Adam, for all the comments.